Those who are self-realized have given up their desires, but each one still acts differently. Does that mean that their true nature doesn't ever go away? Okay, so to answer this question, we need to understand what we mean by the phrase self-realization. It's referring to the removal of all desires. The removal of ego and the removal of ego-centered desires. So the question relates to desire and action. So let's have a look at then the role of desire in an action per se for all of us, for you and me. We can understand desire as starting with what we call Vasana. So Vasana is a term from Sanskrit. You can think of it as the dormant seed. When we say it's dormant, what we mean is that it isn't expressing in any way in your personality. You may have a desire for ice hockey, but until I said that word, you didn't have any thoughts about ice hockey, you had no desires for it, you weren't acting towards it, it was lying completely dormant. When you're in deep sleep, your whole personality is dormant, nothing is happening. So the Vasana, or the seed, is where it all starts. The next level of expression is a thought. Just a single, simple thought streaking across awareness. Some object comes to you. As that thought builds in intensity and momentum, as you repeat that thought over and over, we build a desire. So a desire now is a consolidated thought flow flowing on its own towards some object. When that desire reaches a tipping point, we are propelled into action. The desire prompts us to act to get its fulfillment. And the actions that we perform carry with them the impressions for more of the same. So this cycle of action, Vasana, thought, desire, action. So, what does it mean to remove desires? Okay, we can understand that by looking at the distinction between child and adult. When you are a child, you have desires for the toy world. They mean something to you, you have value for them, you pursue them. When they are taken away, you feel a sense of loss. When you're an adult, what's your relationship to toys? You don't really think about them. You don't have any desire for them. You don't pursue them. If you happen to have toys and they get taken away, you don't feel a sense of loss. You've grown out of your desires for the child world. So if we take that analogy, then a self-realized soul is what you might call a spiritual adult. So they have outgrown all desires, not just for the toy world, but for anything that the world can offer at any age, at any stage of development. That individual no longer identifies themselves as the child who wants things from the child's world, or the youth who wants things from the youth world, or the adult who wants adult toys. There's no identification with any of the desires that we are familiar with. They've been eradicated or grown out of. So then how do they identify? What do they identify as? The identity that you have at each stage is different. The desires that you have are different. You view the world through those desires. I am a little boy. I am a teenager. I am an adult. I am an old man. A self-realized soul has no identity defined by desires. Instead of I am something, it's just a pure sense of I am. So there's a beautiful verse in the text Bhagavad-Gita, and he uses an analogy of gems all on a string. So the gems are of different colors, different qualities, different values, different shapes, different sizes, but what links them all together is that thread. In the same way, your desires, your experiences are all of different qualities, shapes, values, intensities, etc. But what links them all is that sense of I am. The child and the adult are different, But what is the same is that common thread of I am that runs through all of your experiences. That is what the self-realized soul identifies with. Okay, so that's a little bit about self-realization. Go back to the question. If actions arise from desire, does that mean when there's no desire, there is no action? Well, clearly not. When we observe a self-realized soul, we see them acting in the world. So action continues. So we might ask the further question, if self-realization is to have no desires, then why do different realized souls act differently? If they all identify as that sense of I am, then why do we see different behaviors, different lifestyles, different choices being made? The best way to answer this perhaps is with an analogy. And this analogy is presented in the text Vedanta Treatise by the author Swami A. Parthasarathy. So it's the car fuel analogy. Imagine you have a car with gasoline in its tank. That gasoline flows to the engine and it drives the car forward at great speed. What happens if the car keeps driving, keeps driving, keeps driving? At some point, the last drop of fuel is consumed. It's gone. What happens to the car? Well, the car continues to move. The car doesn't come to a complete stop, of course. It continues to move based upon whatever momentum it had at that last moment when the fuel was gone. After a period of time, what happens? The car comes to rest. Whatever momentum it had acquired at that moment is spent and it comes to a stop. So how does this relate to our understanding of the self-realized soul? So let's track the two sides of the analogy. A car has that forward propulsion while there is fuel. So that's referring to any one of us, the individual who has a personal motivation while there is desire present in the personality. The car continues to move when all of the fuel is gone. In the same way, the self-realized soul continues to act even when all of the desires are gone. The car will move based upon the type of car that it is and the momentum that it had when that last drop was used up. In a similar way, and this is the key point here, the self-realized soul will continue to act based upon whatever momentum their personality had acquired at the time of enlightenment. So if at the time of enlightenment the individual had a great interest in speaking to people and teaching and writing, then that self-realized soul will continue to speak and teach and write. The momentum will continue on. Going back to the analogy, that car will keep moving until the momentum is spent. In a similar way, the self-realized soul will continue to act until their own nature is exhausted. And that is the point of physical death of the self-realized soul. The self-realized each act differently. Does this mean their true nature doesn't go away? The self-realized soul's actions are based on the nature of their particular body, mind, intellect at the time of enlightenment. Now, this is not their true nature. This is the nature of the matter equipments, body, mind, and intellect. Their true nature is not the body, mind, intellect. Their true nature is the self, with a capital S. That pure sense of I am. They've discarded the desires and they've discarded the identity that those desires are based on. That is their true nature. That is what they have come to realize. And that, they tell us, is what we are here to realize as well. Find out who you are.